Poké Copyright Channel, released in Japan as Poké Copyright Channel Together with Pikachu, is a 2003 video game in the Poké Copyright series for the GameCube, developed by Ambrella and published by Nintendo and the Poké Copyright Company. The player's goal is to help Professor Oak refine and promote his TV network through watching broadcasts with a Pikachu. The game contains elements of the adventure, digital pet, and simulation genres. The player can explore full 3D environments, have Pikachu converse with other Poké Copyright and collect various items. The game was developed rather quickly as a sequel to the Nintendo 64 title Hey You, Pikachu, and to promote the Nintendo e-reader accessory, and uses a novel 3D texturing effect. It was first showcased at Electronic Entertainment Expo 2003 and later through a month-long series of promotional events in Sapporo, Hokkaido, Japan. It was released on July 18, 2003, in Japan, December 1 in North America, and April 2, 2004, in Europe. In Japan, the game sold 66,373 copies in its first year. It received mixed reviews, which generally criticized its low level of interactivity and repetitive sound effects, though its collecting aspects and visuals were somewhat better received. Gameplay: Poké Copyright Channel is difficult to categorize into a genre, as it incorporates elements of adventure, simulation, and digital pet games. The graphics are in 3D, the perspective is first-person, and the player navigates and selects things with a cursor. The game centers on watching television programs with a Pikachu, a mouse-like Poké Copyright The player, who lives in a house, can channel surf freely among the various channels of a television network created by the elderly Professor Oak, as well as explore one room of the house and several outdoor areas. Pikachu sometimes displays emotional reactions while watching, such as happiness or anger. The game takes place over a few days, with unique plot events on each. The GameCube's inner clock tracks time such that every in-game day lasts at least as long as one real-time day. While several channels are available, only a few are essential to the completion of the game. The player saves the game by reporting on recent accomplishments to Oak at Professor Oak Report, watches episodes of an anime series at Pikachu Brothers, and listens to plot-advancing news coverage from a Psyduck at Poké Copyright News Flash. On a channel called Shop and Squirtle, the player uses the game's currency, Poké Copyright, to purchase bus passes to travel among the game's locations, as well as non-essential items like Poké Copyright dolls, new television sets and various styles, and other decorations, all delivered by a Delibird. Extraneous channels include the trivia-based game show Quiz a Buffet, where the player earns Poké Copyright, the art exhibition program Smeagol's Art Study, where Smeagol gives opinions on art that can be created in a paint-by-numbers style in the player's house, and the exercise program Smoochum Shape Up. The main collectibles available in Poké Copyright Channel are trading cards that display various Poké Copyright The trading cards, known in-game as nice cards, exist in three forms: single, which simply show a picture; motion, which are holographic; and platinum, which are holographic and play the respective Poké Copyright cries. The collectibles can be found by having Pikachu speak with other Poké Copyright and help them with tasks, or by ordering from Shop and Squirtle. There is a virtual Poké Copyright mini-console hidden under the player's bed that plays 6 games, Snorlax's Lunchtime and 5 others previously released for the real-life Poké Copyright Mini. The games are simple and mainly based on rhythm. Plot: the game opens with a group of Magnamata Euromagnet-like Poké Copyright with levitation ability Issho delivering a television to the player's house. Upon turning the television on, Professor Oak appears to request the player's help. He is creating a new television network for trainers and their Poké Copyright to enjoy together, and he wants the player to serve as a beta tester. He has them watch an episode of an anime called Pikachu Brothers and then introduces the game's basic features before leaving them alone. The player then hears Poké Copyright cries from outside, which turn out to belong to a Pikachu and 2 other creatures, the reptilian Trieko and the avian Torchic. While the others run off, the Pikachu stays and the player adopts it. Oak decides to allow Pikachu to be a second beta tester. After completing a few tasks, the player returns to Oak's channel, and the professor remarks that Pikachu has behaved remarkably well. The overexcited Pikachu uses its Thunderbolt attack on the television and destroys it. Unfazed, Oak has the Magnemite deliver a retro television while the player and Pikachu wait for a replacement of the original. When the replacement arrives the next morning, the professor remarks that the player's viewership has brought life to the network and helped spawn new shows. The player then finds a bus stop and visits Viridian Forest, a location that first appeared in Poké Copyright Mon Red and Blue. The third day opens with Pikachu asleep in the cupboard and Oak expressing pleasure at the Poké Copyright Mon's growing attachment to the player. On the fourth day, Pikachu invites its friends back over. Little else occurs on these 2 days besides visits to the snowy Mount Snowfall and the tropical Cobalt Coast, although Oak does continue to laud the player's investment in the network, which has become a huge success. On the morning of the fifth day, the Poké Copyright Mon News Flash reports on a breaking news story. A disc containing the unaired fifth episode of Pikachu Brothers was dropped and lost by the delivery Magnemite on their way to the show's broadcasting studio. After obtaining a lamp from a friendly Duskull in the front lawn, the player takes a bus back to Mount Snowfall, where the disc was presumed lost. Eastward are the Ruins of Truth, where the stubborn ghost-type Poké Copyright Mon Jenga blocks the player's path until it is scared away by the lamp. Inside the ruins, Pikachu gets stuck inside a statue of the bat-like Poké Copyright Mon Golbat. Upon being shaken free, the missing disc pops out. The player hands it back to Magnemite, who is waiting sheepishly outside, and heads home to watch the last episode, along with a video called Meowth's Party. Oak informs the player that every program produced for his network has been aired, thanking the player and Pikachu for their time, and announces the impending arrival of a gift for them. The gift, which arrives the following morning, is a star projector, a device for viewing images flashed across the sky. That night, Professor Oak notices that a Poké Copyright Mon has arrived at the player's Housea the rare and legendary Jirachi which leaves him in shock. The player, Pikachu, and Jirachi then visit Camp Starlight, the locale for which the projector is intended. Using it, they project the entire series of Pikachu Brothers and Meowth's Party onto the sky for the universe to see, and the story ends. This event also allows European players to download a Jirachi to a copy of Poké Copyright Mon Ruby or Sapphire via the Nintendo GameCube or Euro Game Boy Advance link cable. Development and release. Poké Copyright Mon Channel was developed by Nintendo subsidiary Ambrella and published by Nintendo and the Poké Copyright Mon Company. It was created both to serve as a spiritual successor to Hey You, Pikachu, a similar digital pet-type game wherein the player plays with a Pikachu and to promote the Nintendo e-reader peripheral device. The game included 3 e-reader compatible cards, but not the e-reader device itself. When scanned, the cards upload new templates for the player to paint and for Smeagol to critique. The game uses the visual effect of applying pre-rendered video footage to a polygon, specifically the game's pre-recorded shows on the television. IGN writer Anoop Gantiat praised this effect's implementation, although he did note some minor graphical issues visible in the transition from distance to full-screen viewing. Also unusual for the Poké Copyright Mon video game series, the Poké Copyright Mon's voices are borrowed from the anime and sound like their names. The game was first announced at E3 2003, where IGN staff noted that the game's demo appeared to be early in development due to its choppy frame rate. Poké Copyright Mon Channel was released on July 18, 2003, in Japan, December 1 in North America, and April 2, 2004, in Europe. The game was showcased on its Japanese release date at the Sapporo, Hokkaido, location of Poké Copyright Mon Fest 2003, a series of promotional events that extended across Japan and lasted about a month. Attendees could play the game at GameCube kiosks. Reception. Poké Copyright Mon Channel has scores of 51% and 55% on the review aggregators Game Rankings and Metacritic, respectively, both indicating a mixed or average reception. Reviewers felt that the game would only suit existing Poké Copyright Mon fans and young children. Staff at 1UP.com summarized that the various diversions here are cute, slickly produced, and entertaining, assuming you really dig Poké Copyright Mon, and that even fans would be bored if over the age of 5. Justin Leeper of Game Informer claimed that fans would enjoy it but everyone else will be turned off, pun intended. Author Tokyo Drifter of GamePro guessed that the game had been tailored for die-hard fans, and would please no one else. IGN's Mary Jane Owen stated that its intuitive interface, copious instructions, and mindless entertainment would keep young players entertained. Nintendo Power's review called the game hours of fun for Poké Copyright Mon fans. Reviewers complained about the game's low level of interactivity due to most of the gameplay time being spent watching television with Pikachu. Summarizing the gameplay in general as weak, GameSpot's Ricardo Torres argued that the game's promising ideas were fundamentally deadened by the gimmick of having to virtually watch television programs, and the long stretches of time this entails. Leeper claimed that Pikachu will be content much longer than you will, and decried the channel's non-interactive nature while praising the unlockable status of a few. Daryl Vassar of GameSpy went even further and claimed that there was no gameplay. He gave the game only 1 star out of 5 as a result, despite calling the animation quality and Poké Copyright Mon voices decent. Tokyo Drifter found its low interactivity and slow pace to be the 2 biggest barriers for Poké Copyright Mon fan enjoyment, and gave the game a 3.0 on a 5-point scale. Owen stated that the player would desire more interactivity and condemned the programs overall, with the exception of Pissu Brothers, which he called the only worthwhile programming. The game's 3D graphics received lukewarm opinions. Torres called them decent but unspectacular, and bland. His praise focused on the animations of the Poké Copyright Mon with distinct animations that suit their personalities, especially that of Pikachu. Owen echoed these opinions. Vassar stated that the Poké Copyright Mon animations were better than those in the then-upcoming GameCube title Poké Copyright Mon Colosseum and found the environments passable, if boring and overly limited. Tokyo Drifter found the environments bright and colorful while wholeheartedly praising the smooth and adorable Poké Copyright Mon animations. The sound and music were negatively received. Torres focused on their repetitiveness, stating that some of the music within the programs was catchy but it starts to grate after some of the mandatory repeated viewings you'll have to endure, and that the paucity of sound effects puts the weight of the audio burden on the Poké Copyright Mon voices, which, while accurate, are naturally repetitive. Owen and Vassar gave special focus to the repetitiveness of the voices. Tokyo Drifter gave little opinion on the voices but found the lack of voice acting for Og to be disappointing. Critics praised the large number of collectible items and Poké Copyright Mon in the game. Torres noted the game's many items to collect and Poké Copyright Mon for Pikachu to meet, and praised the game's increased replay value as a result. Tokyo Drifter thought similarly, calling the collecting aspects a prominent part of the gaming experience. Owen found the collecting aspects a nice way to pass time and called the incorporation of the virtual Poké Copyright Mon Mini a nice diversion. Within 3 days of its Japanese release, Poké Copyright Mon Channel sold 12,581 copies, making it the 13th best-selling game among all platforms during its release week. By August 17, 2003, its Japanese sales totaled 38,617 copies. The title has sold 66,373 copies in Japan by December 28 of the same year. References. External links, official website.